Hello and welcome back to another episode of AZ Update. I'm Anthony Bartolo, joined today by Sonia Cuff. Good morning, Sonia.
Hey, Anthony, why else would I be getting all dressed up and makeup on a Friday night, ready to go out and join you for a live stream for work?
Well, it's not to go out because we're all under lockdown, so we thank you for being on the show, being in the future in the show. I know it's Saturday morning for you and it's Friday morning for us, but always awesome for you to be here. So grateful. Pierre and I are so grateful for you to be here with us on the show. What are your thoughts on Microsoft Build?
Is the boss listening? No, listen. Look, it very much is pitched as a developer event. A lot of the marketing collateral and the messaging is that this is the conference for developers. However, I remember getting up late to watch the keynote when containers were first announced at Build. And not many IT pros were kind of tuning into it then, but man, I could start to see the implications of that kind of technology. And we've just seen that grow now in terms of more topics that IT pros are interested in. And it also gives us kind of the inside scoop into where developers are going that we're going to need to support in terms of infrastructure.
Here's the thing, our fearless leader, Rick Claus, keeps on looking at me and says, you're always on the edge in terms of everything that's going on for IT Pro. You're always on that, cusp of IT Pro and developer and a lot of the topics that I cover. I mean, Sarah always rolls her eyes when I say IoT, right? Because, here we go again, the IoT side. The whole aspect of going to the cloud and being in hybrid and, the DevOps movement in terms of practices for sharing of information, sharing of code for deployment and what have you. The lines between developer and IT pro are blurring. And a lot of IT professionals looking at, their place inside of an organization being seen as a cost center, they want to elevate their status beyond that. And, Build is that start of the conversation. And you're right, a lot of the material and the promotion that's, shown around Build is developer focus and talking about the new services that are being made available, what can be done to create new innovations in terms of development for apps or enablement of an organization. But that doesn't mean that IT pros can't participate or IT pros can't learn something, right? Like case in point in terms of containers. So, with Build coming up, there's a couple things in terms of what's happening, and our team is actually involved in Build as well. We'll show it later, but Rick is one of the hosts at Build, which is awesome. We have Pierre will be hosting a roundtable. So producer Pierre will be hosting a roundtable on hybrid in terms of hybrid implementation, what your considerations should be when deploying in hybrid. We also have Oren Thomas. He's a big fan of Node.js. He'll be talking about, I'm going to pay for that one later, I know. He'll be talking about worldwide certification for a worldwide learning team in terms of its importance and what tools are out there to enable that. It's something where, with the lines being blurred and the conversation being an open conversation, multiple people can participate in, it doesn't really matter if you're an IT pro or a developer. If you're eager to learn and you're eager to participate, you should register, and it's free, right? And we'll share the details later on in the show. But I wanted to make sure that we covered that just because a lot of people have been reaching out on Reddit and on Twitter to say, it's cool that Build is coming, but what's in it for me in my IT department? What's in it for me as a system administrator? Definitely, check it out. Thoughts, Sonia?
Yeah. And the great part about it now that it's online and it's free is you can skip all the sessions that you're not interested in. Like, you don't have to go to Build wanting to learn how to code or to do software development better. So register, grab the sessions that are interesting to you and are going to influence your IT pro world, or check the recordings if they don't suit you to see them live, and just, dig in there and see what you're interested in without having to commit to a week in a conference center.
Right. So, shall we continue on with the news? Because we got a lot of news to cover today. There's a lot of updates this week. So let's start up, and you're first to go.
Yeah. So speaking of crossover between developers, one of the places that gets overlooked a little bit by IT pros in the past has been the Azure Architecture Center. And the Azure Architecture Center has had a lot of architecture around application architecture, but we've had some really cool, important content updates this week, starting with Azure Automation Update Management. So this actually builds out as a reference architecture for hybrid update management solution for managing your updates to your servers, whether they're on-prem or they're in Azure, both Windows and Linux computers. And it gives you a Visio file, so you can go and download the architecture. It's right there in Visio. Play around to suit your particular environment, and a lot of considerations in there, including how you deploy it with your Azure Automation runbooks and your hybrid runbook workers. So go and check that one out. On the thread of hybrid architectures, we've also got manage hybrid Azure workloads using the Windows Admin Center. So this reference architecture gives you a bunch of options whether you are deploying Windows Admin Center into a virtual machine inside Azure, or whether you're deploying it to a server, either physical or virtual on-prem. And it gives you a bunch of considerations there, again, in terms of your architecture and how you're going to employ it for your different on-prem installation types. Again, some really good guidance here, not so much the point, click, do this, but that real big picture of how it all hangs together. The other final one is Azure Automation in a hybrid environment. So this one does put together those Azure Automation runbooks and how they link through to these hybrid runbook workers for either Windows or Linux, and whether or not that's in an on-premise solution or even in a different cloud. Don't tell anybody I said that either, but it's there in the documentation and the reference architectures. So download the Visio file, take a look at the architectures. What do you think, Anthony? Why is this useful to IT pros to see this kind of documentation?
Here's the thing, right? You go out, you do the research, you've been asked to add on aspects of technology or services into your infrastructure. If you've been on premises for a long time, or you're dabbling into hybrid, you're not expected to know everything, right? I see these as opportunities to incorporate blueprints that have already been, verified in terms of enablement, to give IT professionals a leg up in regards to the addition of services amidst the infrastructure, even to the point where, as you mentioned, the discussion of connecting other clouds. Let's be totally honest here, right? Not every organization is going to put all their eggs in one basket, and there's aspects of technology and services that may meet their needs better on other platforms and other cloud offerings. So be it. It's something where having that one pane of glass to control everything, even if it's on multiple clouds, is a big use to organizations to ensure that they're putting their best foot forward for investment into services and technology. Why require different architectures or different separate architectures? It makes no sense. You want to have that all incorporated into one network. I think it's a great thing to have these type of tools to give IT pros the leg up to say, okay, so if I need to adopt this, here's the best practice, but then have the ability to modify as required based on the documentation that's there. I love the fact that we have this blueprint type of process now that's being made available to IT pros, so that it quickens the process in terms of adoption and takes away a lot of the guesswork.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really does just strengthen how committed we are to hybrid. All right. It's not just cloud or on-prem. A lot of the times it's both. And the more we can simplify the management of that for our customers, the better.
And that's the thing with the complexity of adding services like cognitive services or data lake, or, it's becoming a situation where it's not just a straightforward access to data or not access to data, right? We're talking about applications getting their own identity for access to data, for secure pathways, segmented networks, which, yes, we were doing on premises before, but now in cloud it's that much trickier. And you have these hybrid implementations that want to take best practices of both cloud and on premises in terms of data access or security. These architecturally, this architectural service providing you that leg up and it provides you a quicker understanding of the methodology for implementation. So beneficial. So definitely check that out. It's on the IT Ops Talk blog right now for the latest AzUpdate blog post, and all the links are there. So it's an awesome tool to check out. Shall we continue on?
Go for it.
All right. So next up, there were a plethora, I'm going to say it very slowly because there was a plethora of updates for Azure Security Center. So many so we can't cover them all on the show. I think it was 15 updates, both for general availability and for public preview. I'm going to go through the ones that were, for me, really impactful and something that you should take into consideration, but all 15 are available on IT Ops Talk in the latest blog post. So first off, Microsoft Defender for endpoint integration with Windows Server 2019 and Windows 10 Virtual Desktop. In the time when everybody's working from home, this is a big deal. If you have Defender for endpoint integration available with licenses for Windows Server 2019, as soon as you spin up a Windows Server 2019, the Defender implementation automatically kicks in, does not require any additional work, and automatically protects your implementation of Windows Server 2019 on premises, in a virtual machine, on premises, or in cloud. Doesn't matter. This is huge in terms of less steps for IT professionals to set up. It's literally the load it up, spin it up, and automatically protect it under Defender, which is huge. And then the inclusion for Windows 10 Virtual Desktop, a huge tool that's been used with everybody working from home, with the requirements of data staying on premises inside of somebody's organization, and having that, only the access via cloud for the desktop, but none of the data coming back to an individual's home computer. Same consideration. Spin up the virtual desktop as required, as noted in the news. I think it was a couple of weeks back by Sarah, and automatically that implementation is governed and protected by Defender without any interaction from the end user to set up anything, or even the IT professional. All license-based to spin up directly to that virtual desktop for that immediate protection of that possible attack point. And so, again, no guesswork, no additional setup, all covered under Defender, which is awesome. Next up, container registry images that have been pulled within the last 30 days will automatically now be scanned at regular intervals without any interaction from IT professionals. This is a big one too. The adoption of containers, I surmise, is very similar to when we did the whole adoption from bare metal installs to virtual machines, and now we're going again into container utilization. If you've pulled an image for a container within the last 30 days, that image will be scanned for vulnerabilities every day, set by a schedule that you set for, but automatically enabled by the Defender solution. So that, again, no guesswork. Hey, this image is being pulled. It's being used in such a fashion. Let's make sure that it's on par in terms of security, that nobody has tampered with it, and automatically provide that scan. With that being said, both those two they're in general availability right now. In public preview, and this is another big one, is the ability for direct scanning of Kubernetes implementations or Kubernetes clusters amidst your organization, having an extension enabled to have that scan directly on that container or that cluster that you've implemented, again, to ensure, hey, this is secure, it's been deployed correctly, I have the full governance over this implementation from a security spec, so there's no attack vector, or whatever is trying to be done maliciously is addressed directly in the cluster itself. This one is huge too. Again, automatically set when you've spun up the cluster or you've spun up the instance. Currently in public preview to play with, so definitely check that out as well. Sonia, that was a mouthful. And then, like I said, there's another 12 updates that were just announced for Azure Security Center. We can't cover them all in the show. What are your thoughts on everything?
Look, I'm a little bit jealous of how automated things are becoming, right? When I used to look after environments, we had to do all that stuff manually. Fortunately, it was usually the IT pros that were deploying the things, but it still usually either came down to manual checklists, or we built automated scripting to make sure that things got installed like post deployment, right? Now it's a little bit wild west out there. It's usually developers that are pulling container images and spinning up Kubernetes clusters. So it's just really cool to see how much of this stuff in terms of a base level security protection is being automated now, especially now that we're looking at workloads like Windows Virtual Desktop and those container workloads as well. So the environments are getting more complicated, but I think the automation and the tooling is certainly catching up, and that's what we've seen in those updates.
And that's the thing, right? The environments are becoming more complicated. That's the biggest thing to take away. And so to have this automation of security made available for your organization when you're spinning up resources. I come from the days of you have a mobile device and you would load your mobile device management software suite, and you're protecting, in essence, the perimeter. You're not even protecting the data that resides on it. You're only protecting the security of the device itself. And now we're going down into the containers of the instances that are being spun up for specific actions and activities, because everything is becoming more complex. And so to take a lot of the guesswork in terms of the security structure that you've put into play to protect your organization, it's huge. And it's awesome to see that come into play. Remember, the Kubernetes piece is under public preview. So definitely go in and test it out and provide your feedback. That's huge in terms of how you like it, if it's working for you, or what changes need to be made. Sonia, you're up next.
Yep, absolutely. So next we've got the general availability of Azure Hybrid benefit for Linux with reserved instances and virtual machine scale sets. So this is pretty cool because back in November 2020, we launched Azure Hybrid benefit functionality for Linux customers, allowing them to bring their on-prem Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscriptions into Azure, but that wasn't that was only for our pay-as-you-go instances. But now we're allowing support of that licensing into Azure reserved instances and virtual machine scale sets. So two of our other ways that you can save money with your virtual machines now support bringing that hybrid benefit from the licensing that you've already been paying for your Linux servers as well. It's an interesting one to me. Do you see much use of Linux? It seems to be pockets. There are people very passionate about Linux, aren't they, Anthony?
So I've seen a tremendous amount of implementation of Linux VMs. Everything from, the latest thing that I've been seeing right now is edge devices that are running the VM on the device itself in Linux. So capturing information out in the field, IoT, and the ability to push out that virtual machine to the device. So now we're looking at virtual machines running on an IoT device as opposed to, just running on machinery or inside of the cloud. And that ability to spin up that VM is required. You have this whole technology now with digital twin. So I have the VM running on premises on an IoT device out in the field capturing information, but I also have that VM running in the cloud, replicating the information that's coming from the on-premises IoT device for that understanding of how the environment is capturing the information and what that means for future proofing of scenarios like traffic or weather patterns or anything, in essence, anything. So that availability of VMs in the cloud and having that as a purposeful instance that I can manage that's huge. That's something where we're seeing a lot more and more growth on the Linux side. It's already huge. It's already a big implementation. I know financial, healthcare really takes advantage of it. But this now, having that reserved instance, it secures your investment, it secures your resources to ensure that, what's being offered as your SLA to your customers in terms of information is always going to be there. You're never going to have any degradation of service. And it's something where it's peace of mind for the organizations that implement, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, reserved instances give our customers a significant savings when they're committing to having a workload there for, a 1 to 3 year period. And the cost savings are even better with being able to bring those hybrid benefits. We've modeled it time and time again and talked about how that works for Windows when you're bringing over a license that is under software assurance from on-prem. To be able to offer it for Linux licensing under those enterprise agreements is also really great.
Let's continue on with the news. This one was a big one. This hit earlier on in the week. It's the OneDrive Sync admin reports now in public preview. If you have an organization that's deployed M365 and you're using OneDrive as your cloud backup solution for individuals at your organization, as an IT professional, the biggest challenge that you have is understanding the sync of what's being synced to their repositories. Yes, all deployed by the organization that you work for, all under your M365 license, but you have that situation where you have to go one by one to understand how the sync is going, what's being synced, what is the intervals of sync that's occurring. Now, Microsoft is offering OneDrive Sync admin reports to have that availability to understand what's being synced, the success of the sync, the intervals of the sync, all the functionality from a centralized location. This is huge for the availability to understand what are the patterns of what's being stored up in the cloud into OneDrive, full view for IT professionals to have an understanding. Hey, this is what's going on. This is where the problems arise. Why is this file being synced so frequently? It's something where IT professionals have been asking for this for a long time. It makes sense. It's currently in public preview, and you do require an M365 license to have this test happen. But do check this out. This is something, like I said, it sprung up on us on Tuesday. It was launched out on Tuesday on public preview, and just a ton of people immediately jumped on and was, this is awesome. Why wasn't this available at the start? I get it, right? It's not an easy thing to add these services on to make it, friendly for everybody. And that's why public preview is so important, and for the availability to say, hey, test this out, provide your feedback before it goes generally available, and to test out its functionality. It's so awesome that it's here. A lot of people are excited. A lot of people are testing on it right now. Sonia, what do you think?
It's been a long time coming. When I remember deploying OneDrive in the early days, the sync itself, fortunately, has come a long way. We had more issues in the early days than now, but literally it was every single PC that you had to have some sort of third-party monitoring solution or wait for
Right.
the end user to call you to say that there was an error accessing their files. And people didn't appreciate that if they were going to do a massive reorganization of things, what that would sort of mean in terms of traffic and sync issues. So it blows my mind. This is epic. We've needed it. It's here. I'm so happy. This is going to make life so much easier for our M365 admins.
So let's continue on. We'll say a quick hello to those in the chat room today. Paul Jensen was first in the chat room today, although producer Pierre says that he was first on the chat room. They've been battling about that. Hello to Andrew McCollum. Great to see you again. And audio guy Steve, Jared Shockley is on the show today. He's over on the chat room. Do join us in the chat room. It's awesome. They're currently talking about conference bacon, which is they're having their own side conversation
I want
today.
bacon now.
Well, for you, it is Saturday morning for you, so you could technically have bacon. You can have bacon anytime you want.
Bacon. Look, anybody should be able to have bacon anytime they want. I agree.
Secretly, I would go by the lunch area, and when they had bacon in the morning, I would wrap some in the paper towel and walk along the hallway and have that as a snack. That was a great treat to have. Paul, producer Pierre is laughing in the background right now, shaking his head. Speaking of conferences, as mentioned, in 2 weeks' time, Microsoft Build is going to be made available. This is the largest developer conference that Microsoft offers, but it is not restricted to just developers. If you're an IT professional, there's a great amount of information that will be available, not just IT Pro related, but there is actually a lot of IT Pro related stuff, but there is availability for other conversations to occur as well. Producer Pierre flashing on the screen the Discord server, which will be online. It's always online, always available for conversations. It's monitored by Producer Pierre. If you want to set up any watch parties, we can help you out with that on the Discord server for that availability for Build. It is completely free. As you can see that Rick Claus is one of the hosts that will be on there at the show. Also friends Donna Sakar, we have Christina Warren that's going to be out there. It's going to be an amazing show to come and check out. So do register, do come in and participate. Also this week, not patch and switch, we actually have, there it is, testing and production. So producer Pierre and audio guy Steve, I keep on saying producer Steve, but audio guy Steve will be on I love this show because it's just, they're both geeking out about the services that they're implementing for the streaming of this show and for patch and switch, and they get to share it with everybody. They are looking to talk a little bit more about services and tech. So do join in on the conversation with them as well as they, explore not only how they're doing the implementation of their live streams, but what their interests are in terms of technology from, on-premises implementations to cloud to hybrid and everything in between. Hello World, as you know, is another great show that happens on a daily basis. It comes up at 1:30 Eastern time here in North America, and then in I believe in Australia there's a second repeat offering that's available as well.
Yeah.
So do check out that show too. And the one I wanted you to chat about was the Security Skills Bootcamp, which is happening, I believe, in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, so the 17th to the 21st of May, Microsoft Australia is running a free online event with multiple different little sessions that you can catch. Some of them may be in your time zone if you catch the Australian morning, the North American late afternoon, but great security, MITRE attacks, information risk, zero trust, whiteboarding, ask the experts, all free, all security, all week. Go register.
And that's the one big benefit of everything that's going on. With all of us working from home, we have the availability to join sessions like this. And I love, attending these because you're getting real world experience and real world sharing of information from other parts of the globe in terms of the way that technology is being implemented. It's such an eye opener just to hear, from other countries what they're doing with the technology. So if you have the opportunity, it's within your time zone availabilities, or you maybe want to stay up late like Sonia's doing here. If it's of interest to you, definitely go and check that out. Last but not least, the Microsoft Learn Module of the week. This week, the selection was another learning path, Linux on Azure. We talked a little bit about this earlier on in the show. There is a big implementation of Linux on Azure. And if you're looking to get into this, this is a great start in regards to everything that's available for Linux on Azure. It's continuously updated. Actually, we were talking about this yesterday when we were preparing for the show. I think you and I both have completed 90% of this learning path, but we haven't completed 100%. We originally had completed 100%, but now they've added more. And that's the big benefit with Microsoft Learn, is that it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop growing and evolving in terms of its offering. So now the 100% has been reduced to 90% because there's new resources made available on the learning path itself that you can actually go and check out. So Sonia, you're going to go finish this learning path then?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And it's also great for Linux administrators who aren't familiar with Azure, because it does cover the fundamental Azure concepts and introduction to Azure virtual machines as well. So it's not just for people new to Linux, it's for Linux admins new to Azure as well. It'll set them on the right path.
And actually, the link is also provided in terms of the Azure fundamentals for part 1, describe core concepts. It is not a prerequisite, but it is a recommendation to have that completed prior to taking on the Linux on Azure learning path. So definitely go and check that out. Wow, Sonia, there was a lot on the show today, a lot of updates in terms of architecture and Azure Security Center and what have you. If people want to get a hold of you, Sonia, what's the best way to do so?
Look, I'm on Twitter almost 24/7. You can find me at Sonia Kauf.
Hopefully not after the show, though, because you got to go to bed. It's very late for you.
I will go get some
If
sleep.
you want, Nick, sorry?
Said I will go get some sleep, I promise.
Yes. If you want to get a hold of producer Pierre, you can do so on Twitter as well. You can find him at Wired Canuck, and you can also catch him on Discord. He's on there very frequently in our IT Ops Talk Discord implementation. If you want to get a hold of me for some reason, you can also get a hold of me on Twitter at Wireless Life, and I do visit the Discord server time and again. And I'll see the whole team on itopstalk.com with all the greatest blog posts. And if there's any content you want us to create that's not currently available, let us know. Send us a comment, and we'll be happy to write that up for you. Sonia, thank you again for being on the show. And everybody, have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.